My face currently feels like I've been run through by Tom Stewart.
Puts it to the top of the square. Oh, beautiful little fist in there by Dale. Crucial centimetre moments.
He definitely has a bit of the Belcho spirit. As I have a bit of the Belcho spirit.
Hello everyone and welcome to The Back Pocket, the podcast with two unqualified people who could probably do a better job of being the general executive manager of football than Laura Kane. My name is Alistair and I'm willing to put my resume forward, and I'm joined by Jack as always. How you doing?
I think how it works is you don't put a resume forward. I think that you just know them.
I recently said that some people at my particular work fall upwards. And I feel like no one has fallen upwards harder or faster than Laura Kane.
Yeah, it's I think everyone's been in a workplace where someone has like failed upwards, and then the person who's directly above them is just kind of sitting there like, I want to see it out. And that's what it feels like right now with the AFL. Like, there is a guy above her who's just kind of gone, I think it's fine.
He hasn't said much, has he?
He hasn't said anything.
He's just let her take the full brunt of it, which I think is a good tactic from him. He's avoided all of it.
He's like, oh, Gill's in the news for bad reasons, Laura's in the news for bad reasons, but I'm right here.
She's had to sneak into the Hall of Fame
where they
event.
announced someone was dead who wasn't. He had to clarify to the media today.
No, she's going to come out today and say, actually, you know what, the AFL was right.
Yeah, he was actually pronounced dead after a heart attack a few years ago, and he's actually recovered. Yeah, they had a good one there. And then our latest addition to the Hall of Fame is a gang-affiliated, transphobic, homophobic, anti-vax.
I didn't know.
And then also Dane Swan.
You stole my joke.
All right, quick votes this week. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. How do the votes work? What do we do?
We vote on the best defenders of the round, Alistair, and at the end of the year, there's an imaginary medal, which could be real if anyone wanted to claim it.
I feel like I've told you this and you've told me this so many times. We
should know. It's just, you know.
All right.
It's like Severance. You know the show Severance?
I know of it.
Yeah, like when we come on the podcast, our memories get wiped before and after.
We're just drooling.
Anyway.
Your one vote, because I did the intro.
This week is to Dan the Rocket Houston.
Okay, yeah.
He had 35 touches at 86%. I did check, only 8 of those were kick-ins. He had 5 intercepts, 6 contested. Well, but considering how many points were kicked in that game.
Yeah, true.
Had 4 marks, 1 spoil, 8 rebounds, 16 defensive half pressure acts, 792 metres gained, 6 score involvements, and 4 of those were launches. So he set up a lot of Port scoring, which they did not do much of in that game.
I think Dan Houston's lived up to the hype this year a little bit.
Yeah.
I feel like every year he's been the elite general defender, but he's not actually been a defender. But
where
16
he's actually playing
back half
deep this year.
pressure acts is pretty good.
Yeah.
Didn't help. Didn't help them win.
No, it didn't. They probably should have lost by more, but that's totally different.
So my one vote goes to apparently fan favourite of the podcast now, Ryan Molester,
who apparently they call Froggy. I'm not here for it. He's actually my 2 votes this week. So,
oh, cool, sweet.
He was really good. Did you have anything else to say?
Do you reckon he's ever had 15 rating points before? Probably
I highly doubt it. I checked. He's had 21 disposals 10 times before this game.
Really?
But he did have those 21 at 100%. He had 6 intercepts, 4 contested, 15 marks, 3 intercepts and 1 contested. He had 6 spoils, 6 score involvements, and he also had 4 launches.
Yeah.
Which for him is awesome.
Yeah, I wrote most of that
After Max King took that mark early in that game, he went, oh shit, I've got to play football today. And he just played out of his skin.
Don't you hate it when you realise
you're at work and you go, oh wait, my job.
I texted you earlier and I was like, oh, it's just a silly thing for the podcast. I went, oh fuck, I've got to do the podcast.
Yeah, I kept getting reminded about the podcast today every time I opened Twitter and went, oh no, and closed
it. We'll get to that.
That was my 2. So who was your 2?
Controversial. My 2 goes to Jack Scrimshaw.
Yeah, okay. So I have Jack Scrimshaw as like a special mention because he was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know why it's controversial.
You know why
we'll
it's controversial.
But yeah, Scrimshaw was awesome. I don't know if you have any numbers for him.
Yeah, but he had 16 disposals, 11 of those being kicks, 7 intercepts with... that's wrong. I've written 10 intercept marks after that, so it must be 10 marks with 7 intercepts.
That makes sense.
No contested losses, and he looked He's looked a gun for a couple of weeks
His intercept game
now.
in that first half was enormous. Like, that was when it was remotely close, because Richmond was still playing for Dusty at that point,
Yeah.
and Dusty was still playing at that
For
point.
Dusty at that point.
But he was on. He was doing everything, and that's been just kind of how he's been for a few weeks.
It's
Like you
really
said,
strange because he's been a player that's traded on potential for so long, and I'm not just talking like he gets the stats, but he's not doing it. Like, he has not been doing it, but now he looks really set.
I'm really feeling good about when he played those first couple of good games in a row. I was talking to someone on Twitter about how I thought
Of course you were.
that that their backline mix looks really good, especially when they get Jaff and Sicily like back into the team. And they were like, oh, I'm not sure it's that good. And like the way he's just gone on with it, and the way Weddle has just improved out of sight, it's like, oh, okay, this backline mix is awesome.
Yeah, it's good.
So yeah, no complaints for having Scrimshaw there. I wanted to sneak him in but couldn't.
Unless
because,
you are a
course,
fan of any of the other games that happened this week, because 3 votes goes to
James Sicily,
Yeah.
who was insane. And I put no nickname for him. I put Dan the Rocket Houston, Ryan Molester, James Sicily, because I'm refusing to call him Sick Dog because it's the dumbest name ever.
Oh yeah, I didn't give a nickname to Scrimshaw, but I guess it would be Scrimmy.
Scrimbo?
Yeah. I don't like.
I said
Scrimbo.
Shorey the other day. I was wondering if that was, yeah. Anyway, Sicily had
wait
33
till mic'd
disposals at 82%. Only 4 of those were kick-ins. He had 10 intercepts and 6 contested. He had 15 marks. 6 of those were intercepts, 3 contested.
What's
He had
his
2
meters
spoils. He had 12 rebound 50s. He had one-on-one just for fun.
Yeah.
3 defensive half pressure acts also just for fun. 881 metres gained, almost a kilometre of just him moving the ball, and 3 score involvements. He was immense.
What else do you
he was
want from
a
him?
very clear best on ground. Now that the backline numbers are back, he's able to play his game again, and he looks awesome. And they've got Mitch Lewis to come in a couple of weeks if he stays fit. So I'm scared of Hawthorn, basically.
Yeah, it is worrying. But the question is, I mean, Chol's doing so well for them at the moment.
Well, Hardwick would go back, I reckon. So Hardwick goes back to the back line.
Yeah.
He goes forward.
You don't want Mitch Lewis being a chop-out ruck. Anyway.
Special
Votes.
mentions.
How good is it when there's only 3? Oh, special mentions.
I got a couple. I got Zorko, Sinclair, Sam Taylor, rest in peace.
Yeah,
We'll get back to that
I've just
later.
written down Sam Taylor, youch.
Liam Jones and Bailey Dale. Josh Weddle, we already mentioned, who was also brilliant. Charlie Comben, who I thought was really good. Noah Bolter and Tom McCartan, not because he had a good game, but because he had 15 spoils, which is a lot of spoils.
Yeah, I love it when we see double-digit spoils, especially if they're in the top half of the double-digit.
So that was my list of specials this week. You can get a chicken fried rice for $3.80. And a big red tomato soup. Do they still call it that?
I don't know. You've completely thrown me. What do we do after votes again?
Special mentions, but I can move on to the quick thoughts of the weekend's games if you'd
Yeah,
like.
let's do that.
First game was Brisbane St Kilda.
That was a surprisingly good game.
Yeah, St Kilda decided after quarter time, oh man, we are boring. And they weren't.
Yeah.
And they still lost.
I hope they
but
enjoyed
at
their
least it was a
birthday
good game.
cake after the game.
Oh, Ross. I have more thoughts on Ross later, but imagine being that sarcastic about it when it's not like they were winning when they were scoring low before. They were still losing.
They won last week.
Yeah, I know, but against who? Like they've been losing to everyone decent all year.
He was being sarcastic.
He
about
was.
the high
But what
scoring.
Yeah. Bulldogs Fremantle.
Hey, Fremantle.
Yeah.
When you said earlier in the week before we did tips, you said you can't trust Fremantle, I went, what do you mean?
And you sure couldn't.
No.
And you also can't trust the Bulldogs. It was a real...
149 is insane considering the forwards they're missing.
Yeah.
But the Bulldogs
Rory
are the same.
Lobb looked good. That was awful.
Bulldogs might come out fucking next week and put up 60 points and
Yeah,
lose to ... North.
They will.
No.
Richmond Hawthorn.
Yeah.
Dusty kicking that goal was nice, and then the game was awful from then on. Basically.
I'm happy for Dusty and I'm happy for Richmond fans. I work with a Richmond supporter and I had a chat with him this week about the game. He got free tickets from the company and went along. So it was just an awesome vibe. Everyone hanging out and talking about Dusty. He said he barely watched the game after like the first half, and I don't blame him. He was sitting in the
Dusty has bought
medallion
those fans
club
so,
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just drink. Like
He has brought those fans so much joy
Yeah.
in the last 10 years. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
It's like all the talk about him not doing media. He doesn't need to do media. He's given them 3 flags. It's just been awesome to watch.
I would love it if he came out
the
that
best-
week and just said that.
Like, I think regardless of player quality, he's the best moments player I can remember. Crow Swans.
Jesus. Yeah. I know we all joke about the two words Amadi and party, and we've done it over the years, but this was actually...
an Amadi party.
Yeah.
It was a Joel goal.
That's terrible. So how else can I do this?
And then Horse was like, well, remember when I was on my 41st game, I kicked 13 goals, and you're
14.
not doing that, Joel. You're sitting on the bench.
It was funny. You could see the other players on the bench being like,
giggling,
what the fuck are you doing here?
It's always scary when you see, I was saying it was like late 2022 Geelong, when the players was like resting on the bench, having a laugh,
Melbourne as well.
not caring. You're like, that's a scary team.
When you see the bench and there's Oliver and Petrarca and Gorn, and they're just chilling.
Yeah. But yeah, for Geelong, it was like
already having a beer.
Stuart, Dangerfield, Smith just sitting there laughing with each other, and you're like, oh no.
It's getting a bit like that with
that's
Sydney.
what Sydney's looking
but
like.
we're still too far out.
We are, but they are toying with teams.
Yes.
First Carlton, then Geelong, now Adelaide.
Yeah.
They've gone, you will be in it for a bit, and then off you go. Just wiped teams. It's 5-minute bursts they're doing it, and it's incredible.
It was interesting to see the AFL release the stats on which teams have done that most this year. I was surprised, but also not unexpected to see the Bulldogs so high in that list, but we'll talk about the Bulldogs when we talk about the Bulldogs.
I'm sure we will. It's the saddest one of the week, North Pies.
Look, umpiring decisions are umpiring decisions. The game's over. Collingwood won, but Jesus, it feels like a rip.
There was just 2 in a row was the problem, right? It was the Dacos handball, which was not a handball, and then
there's also the touched goal.
Yeah, 3.
But it really did feel like that game was lost when Will Phillips was subbed. Also, it was Phillips shout out to his frosted tips. Oh, they look great.
he's making sure those recruiters see him.
Yeah.
Also, that Wardlaw goal when he was running in, he just missed a lot in that last quarter. Just put a point through and it's a draw.
I feel like Zach Fisher really should have put that goal through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, that's what he's paid to be their designated kicker.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And then the last game of the round, which was maybe the worst, Giants Port. Giants dominated that game, and they did not make it look like it. Toby Green had 0 goals 5 at one point and finished with 1-5. They were well and truly in control.
It says a lot about both teams. That was GWS's home deck. So Port have already lost, I think, their previous game at home. So they're not in the great.
And it wasn't wet.
Yeah. It shows that GWS might not be good enough right now with their troops, and that Port definitely are in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Sam Taylor, a big out again for GWS.
Huge out.
I know they won without him last time, but he's so instrumental for them.
Yeah, of course, but they're coming up against a guy who has more confidence than anyone right now. He just kicked 9.
And we saw what happened to them once. Sydney did the same thing to GWS in the last derby, was that they were in it, and then Sydney went, bye, flicked them away. So hopefully,
if I'm GWS, I'm putting...
Sorry, Derby, they call it. I know they did the same thing
I
last
don't care. It's Battle of the Bridge.
Oh, making enemies of that one.
Am I?
Yeah, they hate it.
Oh, it's written on the preview on this app I'm looking at.
Oh, yeah?
It also says NG Stadium, which I don't think anyone calls it.
Did you do pops and flops, is it?
Of course I didn't.
My flops were Asava Radaglia. Just that whole game he played.
Pop?
Bad. Flop.
Oh, okay. I feel like he's been your flop every week for like 4 weeks now.
Well, they should stop playing him.
Are they going to play instead?
He was so bad down back, they put him up forward, and then he was worse up forward.
That was pretty funny.
Umpiring, just...
Yeah, huge flop. Laura Kane.
And then Laura and Dill was my other flop. My pops were Amadi Party.
Yep.
Obviously. Hawthorn.
Yep.
Awesome. And Bulldogs.
I think I would change Bulldogs to Bont.
Bont. But when the Bulldogs are firing, whew, are they firing? The Bulldogs had 3 Goal of the Year contenders in that game. 2 of them got nominated. The Lob one didn't even get nominated. That would have won in other years.
Yeah.
The Bont goal was outrageous. He is the best player in the comp. We've said it a lot of times this year, and I'll say it again. He's just so good, and he's been so good for like 5 or 6 years.
If I don't participate in this game, I don't know why you keep asking me, but if I'm doing pops, I'm saying Joe Danaher, who tore Wilkie apart, despite Wilkie's good stat line. He kicked 5 goals, 1, and I think he had like 130 fantasy points.
Yeah, getting up the ground as well. Yeah.
And Bobby Hill.
Oh, Bobby Hill. That mark. Yeah. I think it's better than Elliott's.
They had 2 in that game.
Yeah.
I think I still prefer Elliott's. I like a solo mark.
Yeah, I agree. The one for the camera shot.
Yeah, it's so good.
What's his name? Same spot. Hill took this one. The famous one on Moorcroft. Like that's great because it was just on Johnson. But I think what I loved about the Hill one was that he had the sit on Archer and then flicked himself onto Comben to take the mark, and that was just dope.
He landed it too, which is always good.
Yes. And then did the goal celebration. Next week, game of the week.
Oh, shit. I just put my phone away.
Friday night, we got Carlton Geelong. Saturday, we got Port Brisbane in Adelaide. We got GWS Sydney at the Showgrounds. We got Melbourne and North at the MCG. We've got Essendon and West Coast at Docklands, or Docklandsall, as I've written here. And Freo Gold Coast at
How did
Perth.
that happen?
I don't know.
10 in set
I
marks.
think just on lack of options, it's Carlton Geelong. But I'm going to say Port Brisbane.
I'm going to say GWS Sydney just because I don't want to vote for that game.
Yeah, I'm going to say Port Brisbane. And buys this week at Crows, Magpies, Bulldogs,
It's
Hawks,
also-
Saints and Tigers. And I'm backing in the Saints to not be able to outscore the bye this week.
No, probably not.
It's
It should be an interesting week. I'm happy to see the end of the buys.
Me too.
Simply because when there's only 6 games of footy, the shit games stand out way
Yes,
more.
they
And
really
thankfully, Brisbane St Kilda was actually pretty good last week.
Yeah.
But by the time Port and GWS came around, I was done.
Yeah, and the Waffle game I was working at the same time wasn't any better. Subi didn't kick a goal from quarter time to half through the fourth. And then they've got to turn the lights on for the last quarter, so that was good.
That's funny. It's a reverse Gabba.
You talked about the bye. Chris Scott had his idea this week, which was just have 1 or 2 weeks off. Everyone has the 1 or 2 weeks off. You can do whatever state stuff you want to do in that time, whatever. Everyone gets the same break at the same time. Give the comp a reset. I agree with it. We've kind of talked about it before.
I hate to give them fucking credit, but I saw a clip from Jimmy Bartell and Eddie Maguire, and what they said, if they
Every now and
combined their ideas, makes sense. So Jimmy Bartell's idea was round 1, you do the 4 New South Wales and Brisbane games, you do 2 home games in WA, and then the other games are in Melbourne at places like GMHBA, Mars, and potentially one at the MCG.
Yep.
And then Eddie's idea was derbies/derbies in every state, and then all the Melbourne teams play each other. Why not do that as round 1 and round 2? Because if you do that, West Coast and Fremantle get 2 home games to start the season, and one of them will probably get a third. New South Wales and Queensland teams don't go anywhere. South Australian teams will have to travel once during that period, and it will be offset by gather round.
Yep.
And then round 2, you could have like a festival of footy in Melbourne. Like, I know that doesn't solve any buy stuff, but it does get rid of the opening round schmozzle of having 2 buys for some teams and 1 for others.
And then like Collingwood got their bye in round 7, whereas Sydney got theirs in round 2 and stuff like that. Like,
and
it was
then
a
just
mess.
do... I don't mind the split rounds because it makes fantasy football fun.
Rounds are fine.
So just do that in the middle of the year. So everyone gets a bye.
It's at the same time.
All of those interstate teams get doubled up home games to start the year. Like, I don't see an issue if you combine those 2 ideas, personally. I mean, I'm gunning for Laura Kane's job, and I think I would
I reckon we
smash
could
it.
do it.
My biggest problem would be I would probably reveal all their deep, dark secrets that they're not supposed to. As soon as I found out someone's using a brown bag again...
What's this about payments from a car company? Was it?
Cotton on?
MG?
In this economy?
Has Zach Butters ever been to the MG head office? Was it Viney at Morris Finance? What's he doing there?
Yeah, that's why we
He
can't...
used the words KPIs in a speech to the members the other day. Come on, Jack. No one wants to hear about you hitting your KPIs when you lose by 10 goals.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't know that sorry, this is a complete sidetrack. I didn't know that Kynan Brown was a father-son.
Yeah, neither did I.
was the
His name's
article I read.
Kynan, that's the distraction.
Yeah.
My boy's playing this week. He was terrible last time, but he's back, baby. Colton Felstrop, let's go. Great name, great hair, good Claremont boy.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff going on at Melbourne.
Great home ground, Claremont, I tell you.
They dropped Laurie for another newbie, so I don't know what their formula is at the moment. I think they're very lost.
Yeah, weird ground, Claremont. It's less seating, more apartments around the outside. Like they've built a
you
whole
did tell
different
me that.
blocks of apartment blocks all around the outside. It's a weird vibe. It's way too fancy because
That'd
it's
be annoying.
in Claremont.
Didn't you say there's an RGA there or something?
Yeah, there's an IGA there.
Like
It's
one
like
of
a
the
good
fancy
grocer one.
ones,
Yeah,
yeah.
Mary Street Bakery built into the side. It's weird. A whole Revo Fitness that you can like be on the treadmill overlooking the ground. It's a weird time. It's very strange.
There would be nothing less motivating for me than seeing fit waffle players running around while I'm
Well, I mean, John
7,000
O'Marsh
kilos.
and there's a few blokes out there who are less than fit. Who was I trying to think of? Jack Mayo was the other one. John O'Marsh and Jack Mayo were both out there on the weekend. Right, I did actually write notes this week. Last week I had none.
Oh, sweet.
So, we covered the Scotty one. I had 2 same energy from 2 coaches. The first one was the quote from Ross, which was I don't actually know who has the academy. Do we have one? I assume we have one. And from Ken, they know, talking about GD West, they know their players really well. Is it a surprise to me? I don't know their players that well. Ken, that's your job.
Yes, both of those coaches showing a little bit of nuff to them,
Like
right?
that's your both of you. That's your job to know those things.
Yeah, the Ken one is worse.
Yes.
Because I think Ross is still poking fun.
Yeah, Ross was being sarcastic as hell. But when Ken did the I don't know their players that well, it's like, Ken, you're the coach. You're meant to learn.
You're supposed to spend the whole week researching
if not
their
weeks
team.
before. Like, you'll see Chris Fagan.
Did he rock up and go, yeah, I guess we'll play someone
like,
on
if
Jesse
Brisbane
Hogan?
have a Friday night game and there's a team they're playing the next week playing on the Sunday, you'll often see him fly down to Melbourne to watch that
They
game
show him
because
in the
that's
crowd. He's
how you
having
coach. Anyway,
He's having a pie. He's
thought
having a
that
good
was-
old time.
very, very odd.
Well, I guess we can segue that into talking about Ken Hinkley.
Sure, I'd love to.
Because it's becoming very apparent that we might have got it right once. Last year we said Collingwood's acquisitions weren't going to get them anywhere and they won a flag because of Bobby Hill. And I guess if you want to say Frampton, so...
Port's acquisitions are not helping them.
no, they are not.
They're worse.
And I feel like they're on a dangerous backslide right now.
Yes.
And there's a couple of teams in the 8 that could backslide. Because there's so many of them, some of them might just accidentally Bradbury into the 8 at the end. And it could be a Port, could be an
Brisbane
Essendon.
could have started with the worst ever start and make finals and be scary.
Yeah.
Hawks
Brisbane
might
and
make
Hawthorn
finals.
may make
Outrageous.
finals because teams like Port, GWS and Essendon are currently on slumps.
Big-
and Essendon, I'm giving
Big couple of games for Essendon coming up.
Yeah, I'm giving them a chance.
Yeah.
They've got...
But their wins are still not great yet.
No. Everyone they've beaten bar GWS is outside of
Bulldogs.
the 8.
Oh, Bulldogs are ninth. Yeah, but like
They didn't beat the Bulldogs, did they?
Yeah,
Did
they
they?
belted the Bulldogs.
Belted them? Didn't happen.
I mean, they belted them because the Bulldogs couldn't kick straight, but it did happen.
I don't believe you.
But yeah, no, I agree with that. I think, as I said, Essendon's got a couple of big weeks coming up. Bulldogs and GWS have been so flaky that wins against them are like good and bad. Like, they're not saying much. The draw against Collingwood was pretty good.
Yeah, that's their best performance for the year, and it's a draw.
Yeah.
And they, let's be honest, they probably should have won.
Yes.
But that's a Collingwood thing. So.
If Langford kicks that goal, which he normally does.
Yeah. Well, actually, since that game, he's been pretty shocking.
Yeah, but he copped a hit point in the next game, and they probably shouldn't be playing
I
him.
think it was against Gold Coast. Was that the
They
next
probably
game?
shouldn't be playing him, but they are.
You have to. Anyway, I'm giving Essendon some time to come back.
On the topic of the AFL being a mess,
Oh,
changes
which
the
one?
draft.
Yay.
Like, we highlighted this a little bit a couple of weeks ago, I think, about, like, you can't change it this year because the clubs haven't had time to prepare for that.
Yeah, it's hard for me to be unbiased on this because I am a Carlton supporter and my team are heavily involved in two father sons. But
like,
several teams,
yes,
Richmond and Gold Coast included, traded picks last year in the anticipation of those rules still being in place this year.
So, like, Laura Kane was like, oh, yeah, but the clubs were told us. Yeah, the clubs were told that there would be changes, not
that
that
it
they
would
would come in immediately.
So I have this feeling that the backlash around this has been enough that it will be pushed to next season.
Yes, because they've changed their wording around it
Yes,
over the last couple of days.
every they keep pushing it back a little bit. If these things aren't announced until like a month or two before the draft, that's insane. But it is very telling, and I feel like this is going to be controversial. I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with the way the draft works right now. I
just think that all academies should be protected the same way,
yeah,
not just the northern ones.
I agree.
And it was just because the AFL chucked a hissy about Jamara
Yeah.
that they changed those rules completely. Just let all of the clubs use their academies that way. Geelong wouldn't have got Mitch Edwards last year if Freo and West Coast, or I think it was Freo's list, if Freo were allowed to pick him up, things like
There
that.
are several players right now who are on lists that didn't develop them.
Yeah.
Lance Collard from who's at St Kilda right now.
Yeah.
Was developed for years and he's been
And
pinched.
it's just because Hugo Hagen made the AFL chuck a
Yeah.
I think we just need to go back to what it was then. That's fine.
I agree, and I think part of AFL, the father-son thing, and I understand why some clubs are upset about it. Right now, Gold Coast and GWS, they don't have the ability to get those father-sons. Clubs like St Kilda that are complaining about it, why don't you have father-sons?
Yeah.
You've been a club for 100 years.
Yeah, and like that's where Sydney and Brisbane have the advantage, right? Because they've got Northern Academies and father-son picks.
So that's concerning, but also they want to promote the game in those places. They won't change it. Those clubs
and
will
the
continue to
academies
get an
are
advantage.
necessary there. Like we've talked about, despite the fact that Gold Coast are a commercial and success-wise failure,
Yeah.
football is way bigger in that part of the state than it was before the Gold Coast came in because of the academies and because of the Auskick program.
I also think they should be possibly investing in allowing clubs to secure more Indigenous talent.
Yes. There's a whole can of worms to be opened with the pathways closing up for Indigenous talent.
Yeah, if they allow clubs to, and you see clubs doing it now where they are bypassing the draft and getting young players in through the mid-season draft or grabbing Irish kids / mature age players because there's not enough just general talent. If we invest in those pathways, then we can hopefully get clubs to pick those players and give them advantages to pick those players so that we get them into the league.
Yeah.
That's more important than stopping someone getting a father-son.
Totally agree.
And the funniest thing is, those Camporelli twins, who everyone seems to be kicking a stink about, look like they're going to be going at like
Pick 18 and
20 to 30.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a Nick Dacos situation where they are clearly the best player in the pool.
North should have picked Dacos.
I don't want to get into
Still
that.
insane that they didn't. Like, we know that... We don't know, but under the table, we know that GWS and Collingwood had a deal. And that's why GWS picked Cadman, because they traded Collingwood for that pick last year. The AFL wouldn't say they allowed them to do that, but that's what happened, right? North just pussied out and picked Horn Francis. They could have made Collingwood match that bid. Collingwood would have missed a pick later in the draft because of it, because the difference between pick 1 and 3 is enormous in terms of draft points.
The toothless recruitment at North Melbourne and like a Dodoro or a Silvani, who I don't have the biggest props for, but they are going to make the other teams pay for what they...
Geelong tried to pick Goulden is another one. Like, at least they made Sydney pay for that, whereas no other club until that point in the draft had done it. It's like, fucking make them pay for these players. 100%. That's the point of that system.
And best case scenario...
Teams are now, I think, too scared to piss off other teams in that period of the draft, which is what the AFL literally designed the draft to work like that for. Like, you're meant to bid to stop teams from getting things for free because they want to be happy friendly at trade time. And I think teams need to stop doing that. I think they need to stop doing that. I think it needs to be understood that it's open slather on draft night. If you've got a father-son and someone wants them with pick 1, you have to try and match it.
Yeah.
That's just, but we're not doing that yet. So
anyway, if they change it, fine. But they need to be clear and give an exact date of when it starts.
It needs to be more than a year before the trade period.
They need to be told before this trade period starts so that no one trades in picks for next year expecting the system to work the same.
Yes, exactly.
I can't believe we've talked about this for so long. This is the most serious we've ever been on this podcast. Bontlow, let's fucking go.
I hope Trelaw doesn't steal too many votes. Trelaw hasn't polled well traditionally,
No.
so hopefully he doesn't, because he is having a genuinely all-time this season. He would be in my All-Australian, at least squad currently.
I don't know how many goals he's kicked this year. Is he kicking enough goals still from Bont?
Yes, for sure.
Damn it.
Kick some freak goals too. Bontlow's on, let's go. Gill at Tab is really dodgy. He fronted a royal commission about the AFL and sports betting a couple of years ago, and he was like, I just think it's really important that we keep the sports betting companies close so that like we can manage any conflicts of interest. It's like, you're managing a conflict of interest for sure.
You know my opinion on gambling ads.
It's really funny that it was like a week after it was like, oh, Gill doesn't want the Victoria Racing job. That seems weird. That was the one he was going to, and then it's like 1 week later, it's like, he's a CEO of Tab, and you're like, oh yeah, of course he's a fucking CEO of Tab. Like, honestly,
I just don't understand what's the point. He should be so cushy right now, and I know it's
a game to those people.
I don't get it. If I had the money, I'm out of the spotlight. Can you imagine if there's a huge scandal and he has to go down for that?
It is so funny that he and his brother are like such, like, obviously both still raised the same way and like whatever, but they're such different people in terms of like, Hamish seems like such a like chill guy.
When I see him Brownlow night, I smile. When I used to see Gill Brownlow night, I went, oh, he's going to say Petraka.
He for sure is going to say Petraka.
Our bingo cards are going to have to change this year. We have to find new stuff.
At least this is sponsored by Armaguard.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, there's no point in putting the sports bet one on there. Last year we did that as a bit, and then it was like every 2 minutes it was the sports bet markets, and we're like, oh, Jesus, fucking all right, never mind, take those off.
Yeah. Maybe we'll put them on Twitter this year, see how we go.
I wrote originally, like, will the real Sydney contender please stand up, because every time a team looks like it, they have a crap game the next week. But it does feel weird that the two of the 3 teams that feel like they have the power to roll Sydney at the moment are sitting in like 9th and 13th in the Bulldogs and Brisbane. Like they're not near the top 4, but they feel like the 2 teams that on their day, like the Bulldogs almost did it. Bulldogs almost did it at the SCG, losing Norton at half time. Like their best is good enough. which would be, imagine the melts from Sydney fans if the Bulldogs did it
Yeah,
again.
it would be so funny. I think the problem is...
I saw a Bulldogs fan say, I would be happy to win the wooden spoon for 5 years straight if we have an advantageous day from the umpires and beat Sydney in the grand final this year. And I was like, that's so true. Like,
I think the problem is...
I don't have any problem with Sydney winning it.
Have Collingwood and Sydney played each other yet?
Yes, start of the year, I think.
Too early. Yeah.
When Collingwood were struggling.
Was that the round one?
Round one, yeah, not
Yeah.
round one.
Yeah.
And it was only 20-something points anyway.
So the three biggest current top 8 contenders
Yes.
to beat Sydney are Carlton, Geelong and Collingwood,
Yeah.
who have all lost to Sydney.
Yes.
2 of them being at the SCG, which doesn't help. And I feel like that may change come finals.
Yeah.
The rest of this season is going to be clubs.
Sydney obviously will get the
breaking
2
down
home
Sydney.
finals. So
Yes.
that's, big for them because they are so dominant at home at the moment.
But it's the last game.
The problem is that they don't get the run then, right? Like if they have, I don't know what their round 24 fixture is, but if that's in Sydney and then they have a week off and they play 2 games in Sydney, that's a big gap.
No touch at the
before
MCG.
playing at the MCG again. If they play a Carlton, Geelong or Collingwood on the MCG, or even a Bulldogs, it would be a big problem for them. So it will be interesting to see how that goes. Actually, they
lost to fucking Richmond at the MCG.
They even played Essendon at the SCG. So like all of the top 8 Melbourne sides, they haven't played.
Did they play Essendon yet?
Yeah, and Zaid said they would beat them by 40, and then they lost by.
Oh, that was so funny. I remember that.
Yeah,
Hi,
so,
Zaid.
so all of the top 8 teams that are Victoria based that Sydney have played this year, they have played in Sydney. So that is
It was
definitely
33 points to Collingwood, and that was at the MCG.
That was the MCG.
Yeah, they beat them.
Okay, but so and Collingwood were out of form.
Collingwood were really out
So
of
they've
form.
played Carlton, Geelong, Essendon, Bulldogs at the SCG.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what you want. That's what Brisbane's start of the year. They were fucking laughing.
Yeah.
They had Carlton, Collingwood, and Geelong at the MC at that Gabba.
Yeah.
They lost all of them.
And then they beat Melbourne at the MCG instead.
Yeah,
That was a weird
anyway.
time for them.
So yeah, I think that's the twist that's to come.
Yes.
Everyone knows that Sydney are going to be the best team going into finals at this point. Every club that's pushing for that top 8 has 10 weeks to figure out how they're going to attack that.
And-
some of them get chances to try it.
Yeah.
Some of them just have to watch.
Yeah. I think
Collingwood
I
started
think-
to
I
get
think
figured
you
out at the
struggled
end of last year,
They really did.
but it didn't pay off come finals.
Yes, because Brisbane had played the MCG.
Yeah. Hey, there you go.
Hey. My last thing before I talk about the thing you said to leave for later is that tagging is back, and some of it is awful to watch. Some of
Yeah.
it is Stephen Baker tagging, and not.
Just beating your man. It's the Windhager tag was too much.
Yeah, that was a pointless tag.
And it's so interesting because Windhager gave away 4 free kicks. Will Phillips gave away 6 to Nick Dacos, but
But he also got the ball himself, kicked a goal.
yeah, it felt like
Phillips was
Will
getting-
Phillips was playing football,
Yeah.
and Windiger was playing Lockie Neal.
Yes, well, you could see it at contests when he's just like facing the other way, and like there was a bit of him getting dropped to the ground behind play,
Yeah.
and it's same as the way McEntee tagged Stewart earlier in the year. Like, there's a difference between who was it? Guelphy played on as a forward. It was like Dale or someone did a really good job.
Can't remember.
As tagging like that. I think it was Zorko. I don't
Who
know.
knows?
Anyway, Guelphy tagged someone really well doing the same way. We've seen James Jordan do it
Yeah.
really well. Like, Chincotta's doing it really well. You can tag a player while...
There is. I have noticed James Jordan's a holder. He holds the player and gets away with it.
Yeah.
Which
But
is something
but
that I think should be eliminated as the tagger.
Yes, and like the pre-tackle is so frustrating.
Oh, don't even get me started.
Like there was one paid against the Bulldogs on the weekend. It didn't matter in the scheme of the game, but you're like, it's just so frustrating. You
But
see it.
I'm so glad the tag is back because it's such an interesting facet
Yeah.
of football. When you have
It makes fantasy hard.
those little pop-ups during the game and it's like Zach Merritt's had 10 disposals and his opponent's had 8. Like you go,
Whereas, yeah, you look
wow,
at-
that's impactful.
You look at the other game, the other tagging situation, that same game, and Berry monstered Steele and had more ball than him and more influence on the game. Like that was
Yeah.
a really good tag. But that was in fairness, that was a loose tag. That wasn't
and
any-
Jack Steele's pretty out of form.
Yeah.
At current.
That was a loose tag. But yeah, the other one was that boy, that rivalry survey popped off.
Yeah, okay.
So if you're listening to this because of that, welcome. I post dumb shit often on Twitter that we do little bits of research for, but I didn't expect 1,500 people to reply to that poll.
And currently
For starters.
there have been 175,000 impressions on Twitter for it.
And and it's hard to gauge the overall
Eyes on
eyes on it because people are reposting like just their team's one and
Yeah.
like stuff like that.
It's made it to Reddit.
It's made it to Reddit. The Facebook stuff's people are commenting on that as well, but I'm ignoring that because it's Facebook people commenting on it, and you can imagine the level of
My
intellect behind those comments.
mum showed me a picture of a carrot that looked like a foot the other day, and I said, "Mum, that's AI."
Yeah,
and she goes, "Is it?"
My mum sent me a bunch of crochet bears once, and like the old ladies had demon faces.
My favourite is the tanks, the crocheted tanks, and the old lady's like the
Yeah,
crypt
they got,
keeper.
like,
Anyway,
arms down to
total
their feet.
sidetrack.
Anyway, it's been really cool seeing that response. I really liked that. Like there was a few that were logical. Like you'd see teams that like that made sense. Like Hawthorn's top 5 made sense. Maybe not the order. Richmond's made sense. Carlton and Collingwood hating each other was really good. Like that was a nice little one. I liked West Coast hating Collingwood more than they hated Freo, which does make sense because Freo have been like a flea to them most of their life.
I was very happy to see that Carlton fans share my hatred of St Kilda.
Yes, that was interesting. St Kilda fans are like, why do Carlton hate us? And Carlton fans being like, fuck off, St Kilda fans.
You guys suck.
The Bulldogs just being the rarest of teams. No Collingwood, the only team without Collingwood in the top 5. GWS at the top.
They've got interesting rivalries.
Yeah, it's good. I think GWS Bulldogs is building to be a real rivalry, but I talked to a few people about it today, and I think that had you polled, like, not the Twitter and Facebook demographic, and it was only a little bit on Facebook, because obviously we get a lot more reach on Twitter.
It's because you keep shit posting.
Yeah. But, like, had you polled, I think, general AFL fans, I think that Carlton would have been higher on Geelong's because of people who are over the age of 40. I think that Essendon would have been much higher on the Bulldogs.
Did you ask your dad?
I did. He said that he voted for West Coast, Adelaide and Port. He said, I fucking hate those South Australian teams. His words. He said, I don't know why. He said, that fucking cockhead in charge of Port's part of it. He said, fucking Adelaide, can't stand them, racist at the club. And he goes, and fuck West Coast. My whole life, they ruined the waffle, they beat Geelong twice, they're cunts. Anyway.
Oh, your dad's a gem.
So he was like, for a Geelong fan, way off kilter.
Yeah.
But I was saying that to someone, it was a Sydney fan saying that like they didn't have a dislike for Collingwood or Richmond fans until they went to games at the SCG where Collingwood and Richmond fans were there. And I said, pre-internet, West Coast and Essendon would have been my top 2. Just living in Perth.
Just from fans,
right?
yeah.
Whereas like now that I know what people are like outside of Perth, they've dropped down a little bit. St Kilda's there not for fan reasons. I don't know many St Kilda fans because there's not that many of them, especially in Perth. But it's like what the club has done in the past with like Milne and Baker and Lyon. Like there's a lot of St Kilda shit that I'm like, fuck them.
What's his name? Nixon?
Oh, Nix. Yeah.
I think it's Nixon.
Nixon?
Ricky Nixon or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
St Kilda schoolgirl stuff. There was a lot of St Kilda that's like...
Yeah, there's some... and that's historically part of the reason... They were my 4th pick. I obviously didn't vote for them because you can only vote for 3. But they are my 4th pick.
A lot of Geelong fans were like, how did these Geelong fans not vote for Hawthorn? And I was like, I didn't vote for Hawthorn. I feel like Hawthorn was a really healthy rivalry for Geelong, and I don't like have much hate for Hawthorn, especially now that Clarkson's gone.
I don't think a rivalry always means hatred.
And I was saying, so as a Collingwood fan being like, why do so many Collingwood fans hate Geelong? I was like, I think because a lot of people conflate rivalry with hatred. I think in a modern sense, since like 2000 and I'd say like 8, Geelong and Collingwood have had an awesome rivalry. Like it's been truly great to watch throughout home and away and finals. But like people just see that as a hatred for a team. Yeah. And I think that like
I don't have that. Like obviously I'm a Carlton supporter. As far as the rivalry goes with Collingwood, I hate them in that sense, but I like the rivalry, whereas I hate Essendon. So I totally get what you mean there.
Yeah.
One of them is I hate this club and everything they do and stand for, and the other one's like I hate that when they play us, it's close and they win.
I saw some comments being like, why is Port on so many lists? And I was like, have you seen how you conduct yourselves? You play Never Tear Us Apart. Like, you are playing a us against them anthem before the game starts, and everyone's like, we are against you.
Because there's so many polls you could do now that you're Twitter famous. You could do club songs, or you could do even like which is the most annoying pre-game ritual.
I remember one of our
like the hovercraft or Never Tear Us Apart.
One of our first things, the hovercraft, the bouncy house for West Coast,
Eagle Rock. Bouncy house is gone.
The eagle getting lost in the crowd.
That was really funny.
One of the first ones we ever had that went like semi-viral was when I did all the songs based on what the song was based on. So you'd get to like Carlton and you'd be like, that's a 0. That's a 0 out of 10.
That's a racism right there.
You get to Essendon and you're like, this is just literally a cover of, with different words, a 50s pop song. Hell yeah. 10 out of 10.
That was interesting. That feels like
that was eons ago.
That
was when we
time
started.
Ago. Yeah.
So, yeah, I try and do stuff like that all the time. That's the first thing that just really...
It popped off.
Went off. People just really wanted to tell us who they hated. They were like, get in there. So
will Dave participate?
wonder if all data silently listens.
I would love to find that
My
out.
favourite was when we did the basketball background 22 thing, and Will Day was like, he was like, by the way, Hardwick.
Yeah.
Hardwick has a basketball background. And then 2 weeks later on Hawthorn Twitter was a video of him getting fucking pumped in one-on-one in basketball by Hardwick. And I was like, I wonder if that video had been filmed first.
I didn't know about that.
And he was
part.
like, I just need everyone to know that Hardwick did play 16
Put him in your
state
22
basketball.
before this video comes out, please.
He's like, everyone needs to know he played 16 state basketball before this happens.
My favourite part about that is that you deliberately left off Mason Cox and Pendlebury just to piss off fans.
I love that
and
it worked. Well, the Mason Cox one, I don't think he'd be in that team anyway. If we're picking the football team, Pendlebury obviously would.
Yes, he's
but
the
my
captain.
favourite, that's the point. That was the joke. But so many people being like, "Where's Pendlebury?" And the people being like, "My friend, this is the point of the post. You have been baited by it." That one was stupid. But yeah, the rivalry one was just a questionnaire, and it worked, and people got in on it.
Can't believe you crashed Google Forms.
And then a couple of people who like data too much were like,
yeah.
how many people are on this Gold Coast one? Was it?
Oh.
That's 13? And I was like, it's 11, but fuck you for thinking too much about those numbers. Because they looked at what the numbers added up to.
Oh.
Because they were all rounded. Because it was all percentages, but they just did what those percentages could equal. Like, is that 13?
Say 11 Gold Coast fans participated?
That was the most. That was what I waited for to close the gate on the survey, was to get more than 10 Gold Coast fans. Because it took so long. I tagged people who follow Gold Coast that I know, and I was like, can you please ask every Gold Coast fan you know to fill this out? They clearly didn't.
Well, they did.
Yeah, they did.
They
yeah.
just messaged
So
someone
theirs
you'd
was-
already messaged.
This was so low. But yeah, that was the gate I had to wait
What was
to,
the most?
to close. Oh, I think it was really close with the big three, with
Yeah.
Carlton, Collingwood, Essendon, because of course they were so eager to tell us how much they hated each
Whoa,
other.
did you say big three? Richmond fans, watch out.
I mean-
whoa.
Yeah. Where have they been?
They were all there.
They were there on the weekend and they were
92,000.
all in Geelong. And I feel like it's the only two games they've been to this year.
Is there a medallion
Actually, they
club
all
in
flew
Geelong?
up to Gold Coast for the opening round.
That is true.
But yeah, those three were all way up. They
Yeah.
had the biggest numbers. And then it was pretty even throughout. It was Sydney, Bulldogs, Geelong, Hawthorn,
That makes
Richmond
sense.
all had pretty good numbers.
Surely West Coast and Freo had decent numbers.
Yeah, they were pretty good. It was really only
North.
North were okay. North fans were on it. It was
They got nothing else to do online.
GWS, Brisbane, St Kilda were really
Yeah,
low.
the low
Gold
membership
Coast were the
ones,
lowest
yeah.
ones. GWS I think were better than Gold Coast by a fair way, as you'd expect.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just a good amount of people got on it, and we got decent results to make an actual layout. There's a really cool matrix that I couldn't figure out how to post because Emlyn Brees sent it through to us, and I'm not sure if it shares their
Shout out to
account
Emlyn Brees.
on shout out Emlyn Brees again. I'm not sure if it shares their account and where they built it, but it's a really cool you can click on a team and it shows you the back and forth
Yeah.
of and it's a big circle. And it's really interactive and cool, but I was like,
You gotta host your
I don't know how to
website. Put it
make
on the
this
website.
work. Yeah, but I'm because they've made it in a data provider. I don't know if I'd have to remake it myself so that it's not hosted on their profile,
Yeah, okay.
kind of thing. But yeah, that was really cool as well.
Have a
That's
look
really
into
cool way
it
to
because
present
you
it.
could release that later.
But when I was talking to them about it and other data people, I think the problem was that I wanted to present it in a way that the average AFL fan could
Would
read the list.
understand.
And that was why I ended up doing it the way I did it. I was
Data
like, this
people
is the,
care way too much about everything, and you
I was
just
like,
want
this is the simplest way that AFL fans can look at it and go, yeah.
Yeah, 69%. I hate those
Also,
fuckers.
I ruined that Essendon one. I don't know if you saw the original, because I think you came onto it after it had been going for a
I
while.
saw the new the logo and people were freaking out about
So
that.
that was wrong. The Essendon one, I don't know what happened with that graphic. The teams were wrong. The logos were wrong. The percentages were wrong.
You've unsubscribed to Canva probably.
So every other team, and it was in the middle. I also forgot Melbourne. But I fixed that before I posted it. But
Okay.
I was like, why am I only up to 17?
17 teams.
I was like, that's wrong. I'm like,
What year is it?
I was like, oh, Melbourne. And I know I made the graphic. Obviously just didn't download it before I changed it to the next team. So I fixed that. Got
Oh,
Melbourne
okay,
there.
gotcha.
And then after I looked at it, I was like, why is Essendon so wrong? And people were like, this doesn't seem like the teams Essendon would hate. And I replied I was like, you are 100% right, by the way.
What did you put in there
The
instead?
4 teams that you picked that Essendon would hate are the 4 teams they hate. I don't remember. I think it was I think it was the teams. I think it was half of Melbourne's hated teams and half of someone else's, which again doesn't make sense because that's not where they sit
How'd you do that?
in the alphabet. I wish I knew. Every time I fuck something up, whether it's Whetstone,
Whetstone Bulldogs.
Whetstone Bulldogs, Essendon having Adelaide's logo on the Who Hates Themselves. St Kilda fans, by the way, huge shout out to 12% of you hating yourself. You were your own 6th most hated club, and that is...
Can I admit something now
Yeah.
that I did the form more than once?
Yeah,
And I
people
made Essendon fans hate themselves because I thought
so
it would
you
be
were-
funny.
so-
I was at least 2 Essendons hating
That
themselves.
is funny. Which was
I thought
thankfully
I would-
balanced out by there being like
I was feeling
120
for our
Essendon responders.
Okay, that's fine.
But yeah, so like there was teams that you'd expect to hate themselves. Like I know Bulldogs fans hate the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
I know North fans hate North.
Yeah.
We got a few of those in. Adelaide fans hating Adelaide. Those ones made sense. My favourite was an Essendon fan being like, "Oh, why are we so high? Wait, that's Adelaide. We should be higher." I forgot what I was saying, but yeah, there was a few that all hated
Sorry,
themselves.
distracted you.
But yeah, Bulldogs was one where I was like, yeah, I get
Fun.
why
I'm looking
so,
forward to
threw
more
it up.
poll shenanigans.
Yeah, I like a good poll.
Hopefully 3 people of the 175,000 people that scroll past it. The weirdest part is I don't follow the back pocket on
Yeah,
Twitter
yeah,
because
yeah.
I don't
But
like
you're seeing the content?
I don't like my feed being filled with AFL stuff. And I'm getting people like Nick Negropontis, journalists, sharing it and talking about it. And I'm like, what's going on
We
my
got followed
feed?
by Rowan Connolly the other day.
Oh,
and
boy.
I thought that was weird. I was like, oh, it's not right.
We've made fun of Roko on the show before.
Yeah. I saw it and I was like, how'd your team go, fuckhead? It's so like, it's one of the most iconic Twitter interactions ever. How'd your team go, fuckhead? Roko follows us. We got people at Triple M following us. We got, it's just people all over the place.
You're in. You might be working with
Will Day found us.
Isaac Smith. I forgot his name.
Isaac
I've
Smith.
been watching his highlights
Yeah,
on Twitter.
he's a funny
On
man.
TikTok.
He's a and funny in like a... You'd have a beer with Isaac Smith.
I would have a
and
beer with Isaac
It'd be
Smith.
a time.
His mouth is so
Can you imagine like
large.
those post beers with like Smith and Cameron and like that would have been a
I think
It
too
would have been
many
the-
of them would have been too much.
daggiest dad night in. Like it would have been everyone way too drunk, but like at home. Well, I mean, we saw Jesse go fucking drunk on his own.
Yeah, on
his
his car.
Anyway, I think that's a long episode. I haven't been checking the time for a bit because I've been on the notes sheet. Oh, look at that! It's just our usual runtime.
Sweet.
How do we do
because
that? Like every week, it's like
It's
the
I have
time.
a sixth sense where I look at you and I go, I don't want to do
Last
this
week you just
anymore. And
packed
you
up
go,
around
I
me.
did. I started packing
you
up.
got up and walked off, which sounded really funny on the audio because I can kind of look. It's just like you in the distance, like a ghost. You're like, I'm packing up. You're right. I didn't get a whisper in the ear, but I did get a message. Of what did you say to say? Like Black Lagoon or something?
Did that really pay off?
Yeah.
That's so good.
It took a second and I was like, okay.
Yeah,
sure.
awesome. That's so good.
Awesome.
I'll start putting more subliminal messages in for your co-workers.
Yeah, anyway. Thanks
I'll
for listening.
get one of your champion data mates to say something during call.
What was I saying last week? That's one of the boys I was working with on the weekend did the West Coast North game the week before.
Yeah.
And he was saying that it was a really bad one because they call names at AFL level, not numbers. And they had Sheasel, Shield, and Sheed in the same game.
And Sherry.
And Sherry. And there was like 2 other ones that were the same. And I was like, yeah, that would be a bad time. Oh, obviously Edwards and Edwards and Dawson and Dawson.
Yeah.
And obviously Eagles, Edwards, Eagles, Edwards, North Dawson, North Dawson. And then Sherry, Sheed, Shield, and Sheasel. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a nightmare. Just call numbers. I don't know. And then they're like, do you mind if I call kick long, kick short? Just because I was like, that's what I'm used to doing at AFL level. I was like, you call kick, I will click kick. I don't have any other buttons on my screen. I just got kick. You say kick, I'll click kick.
You say kick, I say how far.
Yeah, well, about 30 metres is that's what I can do. Thanks for listening to The Back Pocket. You can find us, as always, at The Back Pocket AU on all socials, thebackpocketau.com for votes and the defensive ratings if you don't see them on Twitter, which I updated on Twitter for the first time in like 4 weeks this week.
You can also see
You
the
can
results
see
of the poll on Reddit.
On Reddit, on Facebook, probably on Pinterest.
No, we can't do
Don't
that
say
bit.
it. But we will see you next week.
Bye.